You want to know a combination that doesn't work well together? January film and a Syfy Channel movie. I should have known better. "400 Days" honestly has a decent concept. I have to give it that. 400 Days is about 4 people that want to be astronauts that are going through an experiment. This experiment is to see how well 4 people can do in deep space travel. And so what they have them do is they go in this underground base set up like a spaceship. They're locked in there, cut off from most communication in order to simulate deep space travel. And so I would assume this experiment is to test them psychologically. Of course, problems arise as soon as the 27th day happens and they lose contact. Look, this movie has an interesting concept. It could have been interesting. There are some aspects of it that I kind of like, but overall, this is a really boring movie. Not only is it boring, it's not really executed with the quality it needs to be good. Now, the psychological horror elements are the best part of the film, but even then, it's just really cliched and just there's something about them where they're just not executed in a way that is likable, that is intense or scary. There's so many other space traveling movies dealing with psychological horror, dealing with people turning on each other, dealing with people seeing things. There's been so many space movies about that are done really good. And 400 Days is not one of them. In fact, for the first 30 or 40 minutes, it feels like a psychological horror movie, or feels like it's going to be, but then something happens where it completely throws all that development, all that psychological buildup all away. Because it's no longer psychological horror. It becomes something else. Something else I won't spoil if you want to see this movie, but you know what? Hell. Spoiler warning. The movie starts off psychological thriller, starts off psychological horror, and then turns into a cannibal movie. And it's not the people eating each other, it's they find cannibals that want to eat them because something happens in the surface. Yeah. Now look, I think the twist is commendable. It's something that I'm like, okay, that's kind of neat and interesting. But at the same time, you kind of know what the twist is going to be anyway. Like, the movie really points out the things you need to know in order to figure out the twist. It's like it's trying to wink at you. Like, it's heavily hinting these different dialogues and these different things they say. It's like, hey, wink, wink, audience, this is what's going to happen. Like, there's this one moment towards the end of the film where they get out of the spaceship and they explore. The whole place is dark, it's desolate, but they find this town all lit up. And so as they're conversing with the people in the town and they're sitting down, the astronauts are talking to each other, and one of the astronauts says to the rest of the group, hey, why is this town all lit up? Isn't this suspicious that the town's lit up? It's like, okay. It's a weird thing to bring up, especially when the other guy is like, hey, it's lit up because it's frickin' dark. I mean, it's the most logical explanation whatsoever. Then our main character goes on and it's like, well, it's kind of like they're luring us in. And that's when you realize what's going to happen. And it's just like, thank you, movie, for winking. Thank you, movie, for laying it out for us. Because now we're suspicious of why it's leading them into the town. So now we kind of figure out that the town are cannibals. Or the whole town is cannibals. Thank you. Thank you. But not only is there all these hinting moments, there's a lot of illogical moments, a lot of moments where it's just like, okay, why is this character doing this again? Oh yeah, because the script tells us to. There's this one time where our main character has a dream, and he's having a dream that the girl astronaut is on top of him, smothering his mouth. So suddenly he wakes up from the nightmare, and what's the first thing that comes to his head? Oh my god, the girl astronaut is suffocating. He had a dream that she put his hand over his mouth, and for some reason that makes him think that she's suffocating really, for real. Like she's suffocating and not him? Is he psychic? There's another time where they find this intruder down in the underground. They find this intruder, he passes out, so they put him on a tray. We don't see him. Well, actually, they put him on a gurney, and we don't see him get put on a gurney. We just see him pass out. We see another character pass out, and then suddenly the next scene, the other three astronauts are talking with each other. Not even talking about the sudden appearance of a guy. They're just talking about, well, what's going on up there, and blah, 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 blah. And then finally, towards the end of the scene, they're like, wait a minute. We have a guy in our spaceship. And so they go to him, and he's gone, and then they just don't think anything of it later on. It's just, really? You have the unknown person underground with you, and you're not going to say anything? You're not going to suspect and try to find where he is? There's also a lot of time jumping in this movie because it's 400 days. They had to make sure it was 400 days, and so it literally skips days by the hundreds because they have to have it in 400 days. It's highly cliched, it's highly predictable. You know all the characters already. You know who's gonna be the smart, unstable one. You know exactly who's gonna be the jackass. You know who's gonna be our main hero. It's like you know all these characters already, and there's nothing new about them. Also, the romantic subplot in this movie is just so terrible. It honestly feels meaningless to the entire movie. It's just sort of thrown in there. Now I have to talk about the ending, so another spoiler alert again. And I can see why some people would come to a certain conclusion. I feel the ending is meaningless. I don't think there's really the same conclusion that other people are thinking about. Like, I feel that some people may have thought that the whole ending just proved that it was all one experiment. But here's how I saw it. After the ending happened, after the 400 days is done, I don't think that video that comes up on the screen is live. I don't think the whole thing was an experiment. I think it's just a pre-recording and it's just some artsy way of just saying, okay, your 400 days are up, and yeah, I think the ending's just completely meaningless. I don't think it was all an experiment. I think it was just a pre-recorded message that was already set up in the shuttle, and I think some people that watched the film thought it was all an experiment. I don't think it was. I think it was just some meaningless crap. Overall, 400 days, it has a neat concept. There's some things about it that I think were kind of good, but overall, it's just a really boring movie, and I'm going to give 400 Days 1 star. It's not bad enough to be a half star. It's not as atrociously bad as something like Sinister 2, but yeah, it's still a bad film. So have you seen 400 Days? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment. And as always, this is BruceGifford, and this is just my opinion.